It's the BBPTV show since 2012, where amazing guests share their digital adventures. Who will we meet today? Small biz influencer, up-and-coming trendsetter, accomplished author? You never know who'll be dropping by. And now, here's your host, Elaine Lindsay, the bionic glamourpreneur with Truel Social Media, who's the second most curious person on the planet.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here today with not only an incredible author, but someone who's actually my friend. Lisa Anna Plamer, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Elaine. Such a pleasure to be here with you today.
And I'm so happy that you were able to get here today. We had a little bit of a scare there. Sort of power was wreaking havoc with what was happening, but we're all good now. So I just want to give everybody a little taste of what we're going to talk about today. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Light Your Leadership, Inc., and she is an international best-selling author. Her book, Light a Fire in Their Hearts, The Truth About Leadership, and she's also the creator of the LYLTalks podcast. Now, I've known Lisa for a number of years, and this is a book that is actually on, to me, a very large scale. I think it's incredibly important to get all the information we can about how leadership and culture and fostering, to me, empathy and compassion within the workplace is so critical right now. And I believe your book absolutely speaks to all of that.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It's so important and necessary, especially nowadays. It was always important, and now it's of particular importance.
Absolutely. And I know that, I think what we'll do, we'll start off by going into your story of how this came about and, you know, how you found yourself in I guess, kind of a bad place in terms of work and leadership.
Yeah. And, you know, I was fortunate in that I had many great leaders during my career. But then, of course, things took a bit of a turn. And I got to experience firsthand what it was like to work for someone who wasn't really in tune with the human condition, let's just say.
Yeah, that was well put.
Yes. And so what happened was I didn't leave right away. It actually, what happened was I burnt out when I was 34 years old. And it came after a period of working many long hours, which I'd done all my career since I started at 22. But what happened in addition to that was that before, at least I had leaders who, and just to be clear, I was pushing myself, right? But then came the time where I was continuing. Nobody noticed that I was starting to burn out. And then I had on top of that, a leader who was pushing me, who wasn't respecting me, and who was making things really difficult. So that was kind of a period of awakening, let's just say. And so I burnt out. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia at 34. And at that time, I was in an acting role as HR director. So I had 22 people reporting directly to me. I was only 33 years old. I had a small toddler at home, and working these insane hours, not because I wanted to, because I felt guilty. It's because I felt like I had to. And nobody told me otherwise. Right. And so then after that period, I didn't leave corporate right away. I kind of hung on because I was working. I had a very good paying job and responsibility. And I actually liked the content of the work and the people I worked with. It's just that after that period, I had really strange situations in the workplace. Yeah. And at 40, I like to call it inspired to leave, because it wasn't just I was leaving because I was tired of being there or whatnot. Certainly certain things played into that, but I was inspired because I wanted to have greater impact and take all my lessons learned and share them with other employers as well.
Yeah. And that's actually great, because it leads us into that first question, which is, in your view, why are there so many problems with the state of leadership?
Yeah, and there are numerous factors that are influencing this. So it's a very complex issue. So let's begin just to give an idea of how bad things can be.
Yeah.
I work as a leadership coach, as well as working in organizations. I do workplace assessments, etc. So I get a 360 view of what's going on. Plus, I've done a lot of research and I've written a book and interviewed people. So, for instance, global engagement levels are at 15%.
Oh my God.
That means 85% of us are dragging ourselves into work. Okay, so that's a huge indicator. In addition to that, the International Labor Organization estimates that about 2.4 million people a year lose their lives related to workplace illness. So that we're talking serious numbers here.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting study that's been done. It's called the Wolf Study. So they studied the instance of coronary heart disease in people and its relationship to incompetent leaders. And what they found was if you work for an incompetent leader for 1 year, your chances go up by 25% that you're going to develop heart problems. Wow. If you stay with them for more than 4 years, it goes up to 64%.
My God.
So that's just to give an idea of what kind of issues I'm talking about here. These are serious things, you know. So there are many different factors, as I mentioned, but there are two in particular that I'm finding aren't really talked about that much or even identified as issues. And number one is that really high performers, so people who are good in their field, be it, marketing, finance, economics, whatever it is, they are promoted and rewarded to leadership roles.
Yeah.
Based on how good they are at their profession.
Huh. Not how good they are in a leadership role.
Right. So imagine they spent, 10, 15 years developing their skill, their profession, their craft, and probably very little time developing their leadership abilities.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're in front of a team, 20 people, whatever, 5 people even, and they're trying to figure out how to engage them, how to motivate them, and they don't know how, Elaine. Right?
Well, no, and in all honesty, as a go-getter,
mm-hmm.
you are focused internally. You are pushing yourself to do what you can,
right.
And that does not translate often to leadership of
others. Right? And sometimes what I hear is, I'm self-motivated, I'm a self-starter, why can't my team be the same way?
Yeah.
So, and without the proper leadership abilities, so instead of inspiring and engaging, what people turn to is what they know, command and control.
Yeah.
Right? And so that causes all kinds of tension, toxicity. It leads to really difficult and challenging workplace behaviors. And the sum of that is these very stressful workplaces where not only the team is suffering, the leader is suffering, everybody. It's just a big ball of wax of pain. And it doesn't have to be like that, And the second silent killer is that this notion that's being propagated through the generations, and at least since the 1970s, that you need to play games to get ahead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's really challenging in terms of, so let's say you're a middle manager and you want to advance to senior levels for whatever reason. A lot of people start off because they want to have greater impact or they think it's the next step in their career, or, there could be a whole host of reasons. And they might go ask for advice from people in senior management. And I've had clients tell me, Lisa, I went to ask for advice on how to get ahead. And the response wasn't, learn how to do business cases, learn how to influence upwards, be really great to your team. They'll have your back, keep on shining. It was none of that. It was, you need to be mean to get ahead, or you need to learn to play the game to get ahead.
Yeah. How many can you step on to get ahead?
Right. Get ahead at all costs, get results at all costs. And nowhere in that discussion is, think about the impact you are having on the people at work, the people who are part of your team, and how you can make or break their day, their life, and not only that, the people who, their loved ones who have to who have to be
Who
supportive
have
of
to,
them, right?
yeah, who take the brunt.
Exactly.
You know, if you're
Exactly.
being piled on all day and you go home, well, it's your loved ones who sort of get the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And it's funny, something keeps running through my head, and it's, you know, that old adage, you're only as strong as your weakest link. It's
Mhm.
like that was lost in the shuffle somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever considered that, you know, if you lift those around you, you get lifted as well.
Absolutely. And how to do that, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you go through that process? How do you uplift others? How do you connect with them at the human level so that they know that they matter? And also as leaders is understanding that whatever we're going through or whatever we put out there is reflected back to us.
Yeah.
And therefore, if there are things happening in my team that I'm not sure I like, I need to start reflecting on me, because leadership is from the inside out, and ask ourselves sometimes tough questions, but they're very important.
Yeah.
You know, did I contribute to this? What can I do to contribute to make it better? Right?
And I know oft times I think that the old leadership style didn't comprehend or care that everyone learns differently. There are different styles. And if you help someone, if you have empathy and compassion for their different style, that's how you bring out the best in people, is meeting them where they are.
Absolutely. And that is really at the heart of inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Helping everyone leverage their strengths and areas that they need to grow. Well, let's all work together and help people grow in our team. And as a leader, encourage your team to help one another and create that sense of belongingness, which is so important in the workplace.
Right. And everywhere.
Everywhere.
That sense of belonging is one of the most important things that we humans want.
Yeah. It is. It is.
So taking steps, for someone who's going to be thrust into a leadership position, what steps can they take to be sure that they are going to be servicing those that they work with?
Oh, excellent question, Elaine. And this is really important for entrepreneurs, right? Because a lot of us start out where we're one person, and then all of a sudden our team starts to grow. And be that either we employ employees, or maybe we even work with external people who are consultants or subcontractors or whatnot. So this relates to any of those scenarios. And one of the first things we need to do is to look within, right? Personal development, leadership development that is from the inside out. And that's called vertical development versus horizontal development, which places a focus on behaviors and skills. Those are important, but first you need the proper mindset to support that.
Yeah. And that mindset, it's something that, people say, well, you have it or you don't, which is not true. You can learn how to be empathetic. You can learn how to lead.
Yeah. And I find some of the most effective tools, certainly that I've worked for, when I coach or even on myself, is self-reflection. Is practicing putting ourselves in the shoes of others, understanding that 2 people, 3 people could be looking at the same thing and perceive it differently. So as a leader, if you have 4 or 5 people on your team and you're trying to solve, an issue, or you're trying to identify a challenge, know that you're going to have all those different perspectives, and none of them are wrong. So how do you bring them together, right? And how do we show up as leaders being open to hearing the different perspectives and validating them and helping people understand that they matter?
Yeah, and that validation and making sure that people understand they matter really does start from inside. Because when I first started working with a team, I don't think the way other people do. And coming to terms with that and going inside to really figure out, well, okay, I can't expect others to work the way I do because they don't perceive things the way I do. They haven't learned the way I have. We have to look out for how they work. And it's a fascinating journey that I have to say has taught me a great deal of patience, even with myself.
Yes.
Because I found that was my biggest problem, was a lack of patience. And it wasn't even externally with those around me. It was patience with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And good for you, Elaine, to have that awareness, right? Because that's another thing that we need to do when we work on our mindset, but also try to identify what triggers us.
Yeah.
Right. And learning to create that space between the time we get triggered and the time we actually speak. It's really super important. So those are some of the things that are really key that oftentimes, organizations will send their new managers or aspiring managers to leadership works, I put it in quote, leadership workshops or whatnot. And it ends up being more around management, like management of resources, managing performance, those kinds of things. And those things are also important, but they're the leadership piece, which is really a state of being, right? How do we want to show up? That is much more important, and there's not enough time spent on that, or it's not started early enough in somebody's career.
Absolutely. And I think it's what they call soft skills, is being able to put yourself in that other person's shoes, being able to look at a different perspective and understand that, as you said, 4 people having 4 different perspectives doesn't mean any of them are wrong.
No, it's and how do you leverage on the strength of all those perspectives?
Yeah.
And I think that a whole idea of soft skills is a misnomer, because certainly working with managers and executives for over 28 years now, I should say. I lose track after 20. But one of the things, particularly in our culture and our society, that managers are most afraid of is having to develop and express those kinds of skills where they're trying to establish that connection, having challenging conversations, having honest dialogue, inviting dialogue. Those are all things that are, I'd say, keep managers awake at night. Like there's no worse time than performance management time around this town,
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things, I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but for me, one of the big things is showing weakness. Okay. In actual fact, that's a strength.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, Elaine. That's so important. So that's another thing, right? So you're working on your mindset. You're working on, your so-called soft skill, but that courage to be vulnerable, to be yourself is key, because that's what establishes that human connection that we so need, right? And that's what Light a Fire in Their Hearts is about, is establishing that connection. So you ignite engagement in others. They want to do and be their best selves in a very healthy and sustainable way. So if you're not vulnerable, and if you're too professional, so in the traditional sense, because and I did an interview with our mutual friend Erin Crotty, and we talked about how professionalism is really about human connection, really, right, and respect. So, but if you look at it in the way people perceive professionalism, a lot of the time it's putting on this mask and stoic, and not a smile, not a real meaningful connection with others, or allowing ourselves to show our humanity. So, and there we block off, right? And then people start to feel like numbers.
Yeah.
They start to feel, can I give an example?
Please.
Yeah.
Please.
So a couple things. So when I do workplace assessments, one of the things that employees identify as really hitting home hard is that now in COVID it's a bit different, but it can still apply, right? Is if you're walking down the hallway in the morning and their manager does not say hi to them or acknowledge them. And it really causes, it's a painful experience for them. And they'll say, my manager doesn't care about me. And then so I take the feedback and go mention it to the manager. And I say, did you know how important it is to say hello? And, oh, well, no, I was thinking about something else. I was getting ready for the meeting. I said, thank you for clarifying that. But just know that the impact of your behavior, the way it's being perceived, is that your employee thinks you don't care about them. So it's having that awareness.
Yeah, and that becomes it gets bigger and bigger,
right?
Because that next day, that employee is going to be in the hall and going to be thinking prior to the manager even getting close, he or she is not going to say hello to me. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
It just builds and builds and builds till both the manager and the employee are consistently uncomfortable in each other's presence.
Oh, Elaine, I love that you brought that up because it touches on the unseen. It's that little tension, that energy shift that you feel between people. Yes, you're absolutely right. So the next time, the story that employees telling themselves is affecting their behavior and how well they connect to you. And it just becomes this cycle. And same thing with when at work, we're going through difficult times, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see the manager says, oh, I can't let my emotions show. Well, you kind of need to acknowledge that there's something going on that's difficult, and it's okay to show your emotions and model what it means to manage your emotions and to be an example in how to do it in such a way that's respectful. And to how to, maybe even share, this is how, when I deal with difficult situations, this is how I relieve stress or tension. And, we can talk it out. Let's help each other out. So again, through that lens of compassion. So we're creating bubbles of compassion around our team so that they feel like they're supported and held even during difficult situations.
Absolutely. And when a difficult situation arises with a team member, they're already feeling validated enough that they can share.
Absolutely.
Which makes a big difference. As you know, I'm a lot older. Okay. I'm 65 now. So I came through that, 70s, and it was difficult enough being a woman in the workplace, but being an assertive woman who was not comfortable with mistakes and what have you, didn't make life easy, because women were supposed to be gentle and soft and, just sort of flitter through the background and what have you. And it became, in order to get ahead, a lot of women that I know in that same era had to put on this tough outer shell so that they could, get through the day in what was considered professional back then. God forbid you ever cried. Never mind anything else. That was absolute death on the upwardly mobile chain if you cried at work.
Yeah, and that's an important point. And I'm hoping that we're moving in a different direction now, moving forward, where people from any gender identity can feel that they can be themselves, and that assertiveness and compassion can coexist.
Yes.
And in fact, when you are compassionate, it gives you courage, because there are things you will do when you care about others that you wouldn't do otherwise. So you find the courage, right? And also it drives you to be more competent. So understanding that compassion and assertiveness go really well together, and it makes you a really strong leader, and that you don't have to tear other people down to get ahead. You really don't. You just need to learn to understand the game. If there are games going on, that's one of the things I advise people. Understand what's going on so that you can go in with your eyes wide open. And then you can choose to be a good person, be yourself. Yes, be assertive, set your boundaries, and be really good at communicating business cases, why things are important, create alliances, and manage upwards. And this is one of the things that's really, it's very subtle, but it comes up to me, and I always try to reframe it. So people will say, well, with senior management, and so I say, well, have you built relationships with senior management? Oh no, I don't want to be seen as somebody who plays games. And sucks up to management. And I say, actually, so keep in mind, senior management are people too.
Yeah.
So if you're being nice to them and it's genuine, be nice to, like, why should you be mean to them just because they're senior man? Establish those relationships. If you're just being nice to them to get ahead and then behind their backs you mistreating them, that's a different story, right?
Absolutely.
So then you're playing games. But if you're being genuinely kind to everyone, regardless of their position at work, then everybody wins, right?
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in whomever it is that you are meeting. Imagine you met them at the park with your dog or somewhere outside of a work element. You don't know what they do. You don't know what level they're on. They're a human. Humans are just humans. Right. And if you treat everybody basically the same way, the way you want to be treated, then that goes an awful long way. And I think the compassion and the empathy grows the more you use it.
Yeah. And I believe it's contagious.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? And how wonderful would it be if leaders modeled that compassion, that courage, the competence that goes with it, that human connection. And there are many great leaders out there. And the ones that haven't really figured it out yet, it's because they haven't necessarily developed that part of themselves. And they've bought into and are continuing to carry these false beliefs about what leadership really is. So that's what I'm hoping, is that with, more discussions like these that we're having right now, Elaine, which are so important. And certainly there is a movement going on right now. There are a number of us in this space, is to talk about true leadership, the truth about leadership, which is that ability to connect at the human level, and ignite that engagement so that people feel lit up and uplifted.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you put it that way. And as a small business, as glampreneur, even solopreneurs, it's important for you to step into that leadership. Yeah. And again, I'm going to bring it down to the super simple. It doesn't matter whether it's your husband, your child, your wife, your dog. You need to bring those skills into it. And that is leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a state of being, and it's for everyone who has the desire to step into it. And be it that you're a self leader or a formal leader, right? So formal leaders, you have direct reports, but so many of us don't have direct reports, and that's still leadership. How do you show up as your best version of yourself and be of service to others? And at the same time, it really is that win-win situation when you create this community of people, or a part of a community of people where everyone feels like they belong and want to be their best and contribute their talents.
That's so well said. So we're going to now move right into your book.
Yes.
So let's talk about the book, because the book is sectioned off in a way that I honestly believe, and I've said this before, I think everybody should read it, because leadership is important to each and every one of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Welcome.
So, the book is, so it's Light a Fire in Their Heart.
Thank you. Yes.
On cue. And it says the truth about leadership. So of course, somebody might argue, especially philosophy majors, well, what's the truth, right? Well, the truth in here is encapsulating really what, and I've interviewed a number of people. There's over 30 people interviewed in the book, as well as based on my own experiences and over 28 years in the workplace, working in HR, as well in leadership, etc. And it's that piece about the being a leader, right? The art and the science of leadership.
Yes.
Right. And how do we bring that together? And that it really is about humanity. And it's about our love for humanity. So agape love, right? Agape love. So love we have for humanity, and how we show up and are able to contribute to that. And each one of us do our parts, right? Be it as self-leaders, formal leaders, or whatnot. And what's important is to be able to get an alignment and get clarity on how we want to show up. Because formal leadership is not for everyone. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world to be a middle manager, right?
Yeah,
So you're getting pressure from the top and then from the bottom. And if you're called to do that, the more power to you. Myself, others, we're all here to, to support you in that wonderful, challenging and yet very rewarding journey. So that's one. And you know what? If it's not for you, then I highly recommend you maybe find other ways of expressing your leadership, which is like informal leadership as a subject matter expert, as a trusted advisor,
yes,
solopreneur, whatever it is, right? Because that alignment is important. That alignment is important. So the way sorry, Elaine.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the way the book is structured is really, it is from the inside out. So it starts off with, my own journey as a leader. To lead or not to lead? That is the question, right? To lead or not to lead in a formal way. And then in the middle of the book, I talk about all these challenges, many of which we don't learn about in school.
Yeah.
Right? So how to get out of your comfort zone. How do you help others get out of your comfort zone? How saying bye is difficult with employees. Either they leave on their own or there are situations where we had to downsize or whatnot. All those situations, it talks about how difficult it is in that journey. And even going from individual contributor to all of a sudden being a leader of a group, that's a journey in itself, that transition. And I call it going from SME to we, right? Subject matter expert to we. So you're having to shift your mindset from being your own high performer to now trying to get others to be high performers too, right? So those are the kinds of things that we talk about in the middle of the book. And I say we because I've interviewed a lot of people for the different chapters. Many of our friends are actually featured in the book. And then the last part is about what are some of the things that we can do. So I talk about the 3 C's of connection, which are compassion, courage, and competence. So those are like values. And really, they're the key to unlocking that, that fire in people's hearts. Yeah. And then I talk about the 8 P's of ignition. So those are more like operating principles, right? How do we do that? So are you going to ask me to name them off?
Let's go there, because I think it's important. Very often people will give you sort of the outskirts of the big picture.
Yeah.
But I really like it when someone gives me the nitty gritty nuts and bolts, this is what I'm talking about, and actually names it. So
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if my memory serves me correctly. So the 8 P's of ignition are, the first one is profundity.
Yes.
So that's something I did not see anywhere else in leadership books.
No,
okay?
no.
So profundity is going deep within to find our answers. And that ties into our, starting to learn to trust our intuition in our gut, in our heart, right? To be able to find our answers within, and then also help others to do the same, right? So that profundity piece.
And isn't that a part of that profundity to me is taking off any masks?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's taking off the mask. It's going within. It's finding out, what really matters to us, what's important. So that way we can start to begin to form a vision of how we want to step up as leaders, and then to start having that alignment, right? So profundity, and the profundity piece then leads to our, figuring out our passions and our purpose. Right? So our passion, what lights us up, and also how do we figure out what, lights up our team members? Ask them, get people excited about work. This is all about getting people excited. And another way to do that is through purpose, which is the third one. Purpose, the big why. Why are we doing this work? How does your work contribute to the whole? How does it change the lives of the people that we're serving? Right? So this summer, for example, I was working with the construction firms that create countertops, beautiful, beautiful countertops. So when we're talking about the why, it's like, why are you doing this work? What lights you up about it? Well, these countertops are going to be in the kitchens of people, and that's where they gather at Christmas. And that's where they gather for celebration. And they're going to be so proud to show their counters,
Yeah.
So that's just a small example. So we got profundity, passion, purpose, then perseverance. Grit is so important, right? And especially as entrepreneurs, we know that, right? We need to be able to navigate those peaks and valleys. So it's the same thing in corporations, right? Our own perseverance, but also how do we help others be perseverant?
Yeah.
And the resilience and creating those workplaces where people support one another goes a long way.
Yeah.
Because we are more resilient together.
Oh,
and we can persevere together. Next comes professionalism.
Yes.
So that's the part where I spoke about earlier, in that it's not the traditional view of professionalism where you need, no emotions at work and no laughing and none of that. I need to show up and be, a stern manager. That's we're done with that. We're going to leave that. We're going to leave that pre-COVID, right? So moving forward, professionalism is about how do I connect with humans, other human beings, at a level where there's civility, respect, and we're authenticity, and we're able to be our best selves together, in the workplace. So that's the whole redefinition of professionalism, and figuring out, okay, so we're in a pandemic. How do we greet each other? How do we still connect? How do we connect online? How do we help people feel like they belong and like we're engaging, even though we're separated by distance, but we can see each other on the screen, right? So that's the professionalism piece. After that, we have play. Yes. Play, right? Let's not forget play. Play is so important. And this goes beyond just, team building events, etc. Yeah. It's about really finding the fun and the enjoyment in work.
Yeah.
Most people start off really enjoying their work, but then other things happen that cause them to become disengaged. And it's usually about the work environment or their leader or whatnot, right? So, or they're given a ton of work that really they didn't sign up for. Yeah. So as a really great leader, and this is true for entrepreneurs too, or working with subcontractors or working, with others, is always try to find what makes this piece of work fun and interesting. And if I have a team, for instance, right, and I'll give you an example. So we're working on an initiative. It was eons ago, on an accommodation policy for persons with disabilities. Yeah. And I was leading about a team of 10, and it was a cross-functional team. So there were people from all over the organization. So one of the first things I tried to do is understand what each person really enjoyed doing. One person loved doing interviews. Great. That person came with me to do best practices interviews. Another person really loved doing internet research. So guess what? That gave more of that. And then you'll hear pushback saying, well, everybody has to do stuff they don't like. Sure, to a certain degree. I mean, I have to do my taxes, but you know what? If you can at least fill people's buckets with 80 or 90% of work that they love, they're going to do the 10%. They won't balk at that. But if you're giving them 80% of stuff they can't stand, right, it's not going to work. So that's the piece about play that goes beyond the fun event. So keep doing the fun events too, of course. And now we're figuring out how to do them online. There's all kinds of games being played, etc. But also finding the fun in everyday work. Yeah. And when people get together and brainstorm and they get lit up about ideas and innovation, that's so much fun. Right?
Accomplishment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Accomplishment. You get to celebrate.
Absolutely. So a broader view of play and fun. So now, after that is the piece about philanthropy. Yeah. Right? So philanthropy is so important because that's when we get people to really connect with that agape love for humanity, right? Ubuntu, right?
Yes, Ubuntu, absolutely.
So, and the thing is if we're looking for team building activities, or if you want to do something, that's not necessarily directly related to work, why not support an important cause together?
Yes.
Right? Let's do fundraisers that are fun. Let's, let's go out into the community and meet the people we're helping. Yeah. Right? Connecting. And what happens there is that we help people connect with that part of themselves that really fills their heart. And when they do that, then they take that back into the workplace, and they they feed off that energy with one another, right? So all of a sudden we're learning about compassion and empathy through philanthropy.
And well, not only that, but the team is filling the team bucket of compassion and empathy.
Exactly. You're coming together to do something amazing for others, and it brings people closer together. And it's a really important motivator too.
Yeah.
Right. One of the people I interviewed is Peter Beckenham. He's a wonderful man in the book, and his section was on philanthropy, how he coaches people, and whenever they pay for their fees, he puts that towards philanthropy to help the kids in his Thai village, right, with education. Yeah. So all of a sudden, your heart gets full just by being part of that. Right. So that's what you want to create with philanthropy. And then finally, it's prosperity.
Yes.
Right. So now you've gone through all the different principles, and then prosperity, we're appreciating it together. And again, broader definition of prosperity. It's not just about the money.
No.
It's about the appreciation, the recognition, recognizing one another, celebrating together, being able to enjoy the fruits of our labor, so to speak.
Yeah, it's that gratitude also for each other, and gratitude for a job well done.
Yeah, gratitude for each other, job well done, for our clients, the people we're helping, the community, etc. So again, so for a lot of these principles, it's broadening the definition.
Yes.
And bringing it really through that human lens that we need so much of in our workplaces and in our society.
Absolutely. So on the screen, you're going to see the link to Lisa's website, lightyourleadership.com. And I want you to, is there somewhere that people can connect? Is there, in you have a group on Facebook?
Yes. So yes, everyone's welcome to join my group. Anyone who cares about leadership in workplaces. So you don't have to be a formal leader. It's called Light Your Leadership Community.
Yes.
Light Your Leadership Community. So if you look for that on Facebook, you should be able to find that link.
We will also have that on Lisa's page on the website.
Yes.
Now, we're about ready to wrap up here, but I've had this ready for a couple of days, so I'm just going to put it up there.
Oh, I love it. Yes, thank you, Elaine.
You're very welcome.
Thank
you. Since we can't get out, and because you're relatively close to me, I thought, well, I can't do anything else, but I can do this.
Oh, yes, it's my a big milestone birthday. It was my 50th. Yes.
Such a youngin'. Wow. Yeah. Time has certainly flown, hasn't it?
Yes.
Well, I think it's really important. As I said, I think everybody should have Lisa's book, and you're going to be able to find that on the site as well. As we always wrap up the show, I'm going to ask Lisa to please give us a little tip, tweak, hack that you use in your personal and or business life, kind of on the daily.
Okay, good one. So as I mentioned, leadership is from the inside out, and I like to practice what I preach. So I do mindfulness work. Okay, so what I do, one of the things I like to do is, of course, practice gratitude. And the other one, so I keep a gratitude journal. It's the 5-minute journal. You can get it online. As well as what I've started doing is paying attention to some false beliefs that I have, and then flipping them. So I write them out, whatever false belief I have, like, for example, I'm not good enough to do this. That's a common one, right? So I'll write it down, scratch it out. Like, I actually scratch it out, and then I write what I want to replace it with. So
that's so good. That is so good. I think I'm going to have to adopt that one. Something to do with that, though, scratching things out. someone told me not too long ago, a couple of months ago, said it's really important that you only scratch out the things you don't want.
Right.
Some people,
Yeah.
we were talking about
Very good.
a gratitude list and different things, and they said, as they went through month, they would scratch them off. And this lady said, "Oh, don't do that. The good stuff you want to leave, only scratch
out those false beliefs."
Yeah, get rid of those
gratitude. Yes.
Yeah, you are good enough. Imposter syndrome is not important. Yeah, all of those things.
Yes.
This has been fabulous. Thank you ever so much. Lisa Anna Plamer has been my guest today. Her book is, I'm going to lose that now.
Light a fire.
Light the fire in their hearts. And as I said, you'll be able to get the link for the book and her website and the Facebook group on the BBP page for Lisa Anna Plamer segment today. So thank you all for watching. Appreciate having Lisa with us. I want you to make the very best of your today every day. And we're going to see you next time.
By BBP TV Show and Truel Social, helping small biz navigate the digital world.
Bye all.